Hi guys, welcome back to Canada Tops to Bottom and a very cold BC. Here in Kelowna it's minus 17. We've got friends in Fort St. John, which is at the northern end of BC, and they said that at night it's been getting to minus 47. So it's the first serious cold snap of the winter. Here in Kelowna we don't get savagely cold winters, but you do generally seem to get a real cold snap each winter, and it appears we are starting ours going to get colder as the week goes by. But regardless of weather, we are here with an express entry update, and as you will probably know, if you are in the express entry pool or would like to join it or are just trying to move to Canada, there was no express entry draw. So they've been happening every 2 weeks since June. And we'd been doing a video every time and going, great, another express entry draw. Didn't happen. And they seem to have paused. And given that it's now the 19th of December, it's only a week till Christmas and then New Year, I don't think there's going to be any more this year. And we think the reason that there was no express entry draw is the glitches in the IRCC's, the governing body of immigration in Canada, in the IRCC's changes to the NOC codes. So NOC codes, as you may or may not know, are how the IRCC classifies jobs. So pretty much every job in the world gets a NOC code, National Occupational Classification. And those have changed, and we think it's caused some glitches. The IRCC insists, though, that they are on target to process 80% of new applications within standard processing times, which, having been one of the people...
bold claim, I think.
Having been processed ourselves, that sounds like total nonsense. But hey-ho, that's what they say they're going to do, but governments say lots of things which turn out not to be true. And they also claim that they're on track to welcome 431,000 PRs to Canada in 2022, which I think they probably will hit. So as with everything governments say, you take all of it with a pinch of salt. Some of it's true, some of it maybe not.
Okay, so on to our next bit of news. We've mentioned this before, but I think it's a really important one, that Canada is going to introduce targeted express entry draws as of spring 2023. As yet, we don't know that much about this. They have just claimed, they've just sort of released this information that from next year, from spring next year, 2023, you are not just going to be selected from the express entry pool because of the amount of points you have, which is currently the method. The more points you have, the more likely you are going to be selected. However, it's going to change in 2023, and that is because they need to address labour shortages. So the express entry draws are going to be targeted at occupations. And as yet, no information has been released as to which occupations or which areas they're going to target. But we have a few predictions based on, some murmurings that are going around. And we predict that healthcare is going to be the number one thing that is going to be targeted. As with a lot of countries at the minute, I think healthcare is huge shortages, but Canada is really experiencing massive healthcare shortages across all areas of healthcare. And yeah, we actually had an experience of this recently where we had to go to attend the ER, the emergency room, in the evening. And there was one physician, there was one doctor covering the entire emergency room in the evening. And it was just, I felt desperately sorry for them. But it was very clear that healthcare is in crisis really at the minute. So some of the measures that are in place are they're trying to remove some of the barriers for internationally trained physicians, who some of whom are already in Canada, but also people who need their foreign credentials recognised. So if you're a trained physician in another country, you need your credentials assessed and recognised in Canada, and they're trying to remove some of the barriers because it's a really complicated process at the minute, and it takes a very long time for people to become accredited in Canada. So they're trying to streamline that process and remove some of the obstacles that foreign physicians face currently. So that's our number one prediction, that they're going to target healthcare occupations. We also predict that early childhood educators are going to be targeted because they're hugely in demand across Canada. So that's it's not teachers, that's people who work with children who are under school age, so preschoolers, and truck drivers. or drivers in general, actually, delivery drivers and especially long haul drivers. And the other thing that we really do predict is French speakers. So we think that French speaking candidates are going to be targeted in the new year. So that's something to really think about and consider. So if you've got a low express entry CRS point score at the minute, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because you might be in an occupation which might be targeted. So your point score doesn't necessarily matter come spring next year. So watch this space for more information about that. And the final thing we're going to talk to you about today is a new public policy that is coming into effect in January 2023, which is going to allow families of some work permit holders who are already in Canada on a work permit are going to be eligible for an open work permit. Now, this is of note because currently, as of right now, you're only eligible for a work permit if your spouse is working in Canada in a skilled occupation. If your spouse is working in Canada on a low skilled occupation, you as the dependent spouse are not eligible for an open work permit. But that's set to change quite soon, as of early next year, January 2023, they've said. So even if you are not working in a high skilled occupation, if you are in a low wage stream or an agricultural worker, your spouse or your work aged dependents, so if you've got an older child who's eligible to work, are going to now be eligible for an open work permit, which is really, it's a great public policy, because it means that more dependents and spouses are going to be able to come to Canada and reunite families, because that's one of Canada's big pillars. They want to reunite families. We don't know much at the minute. Again, it's just been mentioned, and it's going to be a phased approach, and it's going to start at the beginning of 2023, and it's going to be a 2-year temporary measure. So if you think you may come into that category, then stay tuned, because I think that could be quite a big thing.
Okay, so that's it. That is Express Entry updated. As we mentioned at the start, don't think there are going to be any more draws this year, which is such a shame, because the draws were coming regularly. The cut-off scores were coming down. Seems to have paused. Good old IRCC. Feels like we give them a hard time, but honestly, I feel like they deserve it. But
yeah,
that's how it's gone. So we will be back on Wednesday with a video as standard. And then 2 weeks from now, can't work out the date of that, we'll be back with another immigration show live again. Hopefully got some good news for Express Entry profile owners. So have a great Christmas and New Year, and we will see you live in a couple of weeks' time.
Bye.